Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Georgina, and today we're going to talk about something that I think is so important, especially if you are trying to understand your body better, or if you've ever felt confused or dismissed when it comes to your symptoms. Specifically, the myths versus the reality. This is going to be a really in-depth, honest conversation because there are so many misconceptions about endometriosis, and those misconceptions don't just exist online or in passing conversations. They actually affect how people are treated, how long it takes to get diagnosed, and how seriously symptoms are taken. So today, I want to break that down properly, myth by myth, and talk about what the reality actually looks like. I also want to say that I'm currently in the stage of suspecting endometriosis and being referred to a gynaecologist, so this topic is very real for me. I'm learning as I go, and I want to share that journey in a way that hopefully helps someone else feel less alone or more informed. So let's start with one of the most common myths, and honestly, one of the most damaging ones, which is the idea that severe period pain is normal. This is something that so many people grow up hearing. You're told that periods are supposed to hurt, that cramps are just part of life, and that you just have to deal with it. And while it is true that some discomfort can be normal, the reality is that severe pain that stops you from functioning, pain that makes you miss school, work, or social events, is not something that should just be dismissed. The problem with this myth is that it creates a situation where people don't question their symptoms. If you believe that what you're experiencing is normal, you're much less likely to seek help or push for answers. And that's one of the reasons why endometriosis can go undiagnosed for so long. Another very common myth is that endometriosis is just a bad period. This is something that sounds simple on the surface, but it completely minimizes what the condition actually is. The reality is that endometriosis is a chronic condition that can affect many different parts of the body and cause a wide range of symptoms, not just during your period, but throughout the entire month. For some people, the pain is constant. For others, it shows up in different ways, like fatigue, digestive issues, or pain in areas that don't immediately seem connected to the reproductive system. So, reducing it to just a bad period doesn't just oversimplify it. It makes it harder for people to recognize when something is wrong. Another myth that I think is really important to talk about is the idea that endometriosis always shows up clearly on scans or tests. A lot of people assume that if something is wrong, it will be obvious on an ultrasound or a scan, and if those tests come back normal, then everything must be fine. But the reality is that endometriosis is not always visible on standard imaging. Many people have normal scans and still have endometriosis, and because of that, normal test results can sometimes lead to symptoms being dismissed or not investigated further, which adds to the delay in diagnosis. There is also a myth that endometriosis only affects older people or people who have been dealing with symptoms for a long time. In reality, symptoms can start very early, often in the teenage years, and just because someone is young doesn't mean their symptoms should be taken less seriously. Another misconception is that if you can still function, your symptoms must not be that bad. This is something that a lot of people experience, where they are pushing through pain, managing to carry on with their daily lives, and because of that, their symptoms are not seen as severe. But the reality is that many people with endometriosis become incredibly good at coping. They learn how to manage their symptoms in ways that aren't always visible to others. They might plan their lives around their pain, avoid certain activities, or push themselves beyond what is actually healthy just to keep up appearances. There is also a myth that endometriosis is rare, which can make people feel like it's unlikely that they have it. But the reality is that it is actually quite common, and the lack of awareness around it is part of why it often goes undiagnosed. Another really harmful myth is that if a doctor says everything is fine, then there is nothing wrong. While doctors are incredibly important and knowledgeable, they don't always have all the answers straight away, especially with a condition like endometriosis that can be difficult to diagnose. The reality is that sometimes it takes multiple appointments, different perspectives, and persistence to get to the bottom of what is going on. And just because you don't have an answer yet doesn't mean your symptoms aren't real. There is also the idea that endometriosis is just about physical symptoms. When in reality, it has a huge emotional and mental impact as well. Living with ongoing pain and uncertainty can affect your confidence, your mental health, and your overall quality of life. You might feel frustrated, isolated, or even start to doubt yourself, especially if your experiences have been dismissed or minimized. And that emotional side is just as important as the physical side, even though it's often overlooked. Another myth is that once you get a diagnosis, everything becomes simple or easy to manage. The reality is that diagnosis is just one part of the journey. Managing endometriosis can still be complex, and different people respond to different treatments in different ways. There is also a misconception that lifestyle changes alone can fix everything. While things like diet, exercise, and stress management can be helpful, they are not a cure. And suggesting that they can make people feel like they're not doing enough when their symptoms continue. Another myth that comes up a lot is the idea that you have to look unwell for your symptoms to be taken seriously. Because endometriosis is often an invisible condition, people might look completely fine on the outside while struggling on the inside. And that can make it harder to explain what you're going through or to be believed. The reality is that you cannot judge someone's health based on how they look, and invisible illnesses are just as valid as visible ones. There is also a myth that endometriosis only affects certain types of people. In reality, it can affect anyone. This kind of thinking can make people feel like they don't fit the typical profile and therefore might not consider it as a possibility. Another misconception is that talking about periods or reproductive health is something that should be avoided or kept private. This can create a lack of open conversation, which contributes to misinformation and delays in understanding symptoms. The reality is that open, honest conversations are essential for awareness, and the more we talk about these topics, the more we break down stigma and make it easier for people to seek help. I also want to talk about the myth that if your symptoms come and go, they're not serious. Endometriosis symptoms can fluctuate, which can make them seem less consistent or easier to dismiss, but that doesn't mean they're not significant. Another important myth is that you have to have every single symptom for it to be endometriosis. In reality, symptoms vary wildly, and not having a specific symptom does not rule it out. As we go through all of these myths, a pattern starts to emerge, and that pattern is many of these misconceptions lead to one thing, which is delay. Delay in recognizing symptoms, delay in seeking help, delay in being taken seriously, and ultimately, delay in diagnosis. And that's why understanding the reality behind these myths is so important, because it changes the way we think about symptoms, the way we respond to them, and the way we support ourselves and others. For me personally, being in the stage of suspecting endometriosis, learning about these myths has been eye-opening. It has made me realise how easy it is to dismiss your own symptoms when you've been told certain things for so long, and how important it is to question those beliefs. If you're watching this and something has resonated with you, I just want to say that your experience matters. Your symptoms are valid, even if you don't have all the answers yet. And it's okay to keep asking questions and seeking support. If there is one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's that understanding the difference between myths and reality can be incredibly powerful. It can help you recognise when something isn't right. It can help you advocate for yourself. And it can help you feel less alone in the process. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or relatable, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.